Earth strikes back. Humanity's bold retaliation shocks the Galactic Council. In the endless expanse of the Galactic Council chamber, 1,000 different species gathered, shimmering under the light of distant stars filtering through the high, crystalline dome. The atmosphere buzzed with tension, punctuated only by the soft hum of translators in multiple alien tongues. High Chancellor Eriditharn, an elder of the Trivan, with shimmering golden scales that flickered as she spoke, called the assembly to order. Her voice, sharp and cold, echoed across the assembly. "Let us address the matter of Earth," she intoned, the word alone enough to send ripples through the crowd. The Galactic Council had long viewed Earth as a trivial outpost, a small, primitive planet inhabited by a relatively new species. When humanity had first reached the stars, they were met with guarded interest, watched with something between amusement and caution. Yet, over the decades, humans had continued to push their limits, encroaching on Council-protected territories, even trespassing into classified sectors. And then, several cycles ago, a skirmish had occurred, one that ended disastrously for humanity. Several high-ranking Council races, particularly the Triver and Sulari, had taken it upon themselves to remind Earth of its place in the galaxy. They hadn't expected much of a response after the decisive strike. Earth, after all, was young, its forces scattered and unprepared for the technology of the Council. But humanity had gone silent. Too silent. That silence, at first a source of Council satisfaction, began to turn sour. Whispers of quiet planetary fortifications and military upgrades found their way into the Council's high chambers. Scouts reported the presence of vast, unidentified constructs hidden within asteroid belts and in orbit around moons throughout the Sol system. The silence of Earth had, it turned out, been the silence of preparation. As Chancellor Itharn continued her address, a young Sulari officer named Tren huddled at the edge of the chamber, barely listening. The Sulari were known for their superior combat strategy and extensive weaponry. To him, Earth was a minor concern, a footnote in the Galactic Council's ongoing campaigns. The humans were driven, yes, but they were primitive, emotional, a small inconvenience. But he had heard the stories, the scattered reports from patrols and scouts who'd ventured near human territory. They spoke of immense structures under construction, armed orbital stations, and weapons far beyond Earth's supposed technological capabilities. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, urgent beeping on his communicator. Curious, he glanced at the display, which held a message marked Priority 1. His eyes widened as he read the urgent report from the scouts on the Sol system's perimeter. To all high-ranking officers, unknown object detected on intercept trajectory with Council territory. Object origin confirmed, Sol system, human insignia present. Before Tren could even process the implications, a holographic screen in the center of the chamber blinked to life, displaying the incoming vessel. It was colossal and angular, menacing craft that glided through the dark void with a brutal efficiency that seemed purposeful. It was armored in layers of dark metal, its hull bristling with weapons that gleamed menacingly. The ship bore no resemblance to the scattered craft humanity had used before. The councillors murmured, disbelief rippling across their ranks. One voice rose, sharp and accusatory. They couldn't have built that, not humans. But the proof was right in front of them. The vessel transmitted a single, direct message to the Council. An older human man, his gaze sharp as steel, appeared on the screen, dressed in an austere black uniform with a small insignia bearing Earth's planet symbol. His voice was calm but resonant, carrying an undeniable weight. "This is Admiral Joseph Caleb of the United Earth Fleet," he began, his gaze scanning the Council members with a look that brooked no argument. "Several cycles ago, your forces attacked our colonies in what was described as a warning." He leaned forward, and for a moment, the Council chamber fell silent. "Consider this our response." The councillors shifted uneasily, murmuring among themselves. The Solari officer Tren felt an unfamiliar chill grip him as he watched the human's cold, steady eyes. He'd expected anger, maybe even desperation. What he saw was something entirely different, determination honed to a razor edge. Admiral Caleb continued, his tone resolute. "For decades, we sought peace, attempted diplomacy, and adhered to Council edicts. We were ignored, dismissed, even attacked. Now, we stand before you with strength hard-earned, and our patience is gone." With that, he nodded off-screen, and the transmission cut out. At that exact moment, the ship outside released a series of smaller drones, each streaking toward Council-guarded space. They were fast, a gleaming web of tactical missiles, enhanced armor units, and unknown machinery that hummed with a power signature unlike anything the Council had seen before. The defense systems activated almost reflexively, but as the drones closed in, they suddenly split into two groups. The counselors, with widening eyes, watched as each drone relayed images back to the central screen. The main targets were Council satellites and defense outposts stationed along the nearest Council worlds, each designed to protect against minor skirmishes. Within seconds, however, the screen flashed with warning after warning. Every satellite station in Earth's vicinity was going dark. Explosions littered the screens, Council shields dropping as weapons of unfamiliar design tore through them. Panic erupted as the counselors realized the extent of Earth's strategy. Transfixed, saw the humans had targeted not just the weapons, but their very infrastructure, the means of communication, the coordination systems that kept Council fleets organized. It wasn't reckless, it was surgical. The humans weren't just sending a message, they were dismantling the Council's outer defenses, piece by precise piece. The High Chancellor's face hardened as she raised her voice above the chaotic murmurs. We underestimated them. Deploy all defensive fleets to intercept. Earth must know that it cannot win. But as the Council's fleets mobilized, new warnings flashed across the display. Entire human squadrons appeared from the dark, positioned with unsettling precision. Earth's forces were waiting, ready to face the Council's might. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council, an alliance that had kept the peace for eons, found itself not as a power issuing commands, but as the target of a meticulously planned assault. The massive assault on Council satellites was only the beginning. Admiral Joseph Caleb stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolute, the flagship of Earth's new defense fleet, as the vast black of space rippled with the explosions of Council outposts. Around him, officers buzzed with steady efficiency, monitoring systems and tracking the Council fleets mobilizing in the nearby sectors. This wasn't just Earth's fight anymore, Caleb had allies. We have reports of Council movements along the Solari borders, said Commander Lin, a sharp-eyed strategist from Mars Colony. She brought up a projection on the screen showing troop formations. They're reinforcing quickly, but... She hesitated, glancing at Caleb. But, Caleb prompted, voice steady. She gave a small, grim smile. They're underestimating our reach, and they're unaware of our friends. The word held a weight. Humanity hadn't stood alone in the last few years. They'd made quiet alliances with smaller alien factions who'd suffered under the Council's unchecked dominance. Species long oppressed or ignored had finally seen a kindred spirit in humanity's resilience and, more importantly, in its defiance. Prepare the fleet for Operation Shieldbreaker, Caleb ordered, his voice cutting through the room with quiet authority. Let's remind the Council that we don't back down. Around him, officers moved swiftly to relay his orders. Humanity's bold plan was now fully in motion, to dismantle the Council's iron grip on nearby sectors by systematically breaking down its infrastructure, one fortified sector at a time. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Council's capital, Chancellor Meredith Arn was far from calm. She had spent her lifetime in diplomacy, presiding over peaceful negotiations and Council expansions, and yet here she was witnessing an unknown human craft attacking with military precision, using strategies that should have been beyond a species so young. High General Arxis, I need options, she demanded, her golden eyes gleaming with barely contained rage. Arxis, a stoic triver with scales that seemed made of living stone, kept his calm. He respected the Chancellor but wasn't afraid to speak his mind. Chancellor, I suggest deploying the reserve fleets from the outer territories. The humans have proven more resilient than we anticipated. Resilient? She scoffed. They are reckless. Yet, somehow, she trailed off, a strange realization dawning. They've studied us. They've been watching us far more closely than we thought. At that, Arxis's eyes narrowed. Then it is time we show them why we are the Council. On the far edges of Council territory, a ship unlike any other drifted just outside the known territories. The vessel was sleek and dark, its hull an alloy that absorbed nearly all light, making it nearly invisible against the backdrop of stars. Aboard this ship was one of the Council's most secretive assets, an Inlix named Vurik. The Inlix were a feared species, spies, assassins, masters of infiltration. Vurik was silent, his body covered in a dark bodysuit that shimmered with faintly iridescent scales. He watched as the UNS Resolute appeared on his scanners, a sly grin tugging at his lips. His orders were clear: infiltrate the human flagship, assess their technology, and sabotage it from within. On board the UNS Resolute, Admiral Caleb and Commander Lin reviewed the holographic map, now pulsing with movement as Council forces gathered. "Sir," Lin said, voice low, "I'm detecting an anomaly in the outer sectors, unidentified energy readings, possibly a cloaked vessel." Caleb's expression tightened. They had anticipated that the Council would send spies, even saboteurs. Their new technology gave Earth an advantage, but it was untested in real conflict, and there was always the risk of sabotage. "Activate all counter-infiltration protocols," Caleb ordered. "No unknowns get through our shields, and bring in Alliance representatives. I want every ally briefed." Hours later, as Earth's allied species, Korthan engineers, Trucian warriors, and the cautious but resourceful Melner merchants gathered on the bridge, a sudden tremor shook the ship. Alarms blared, and lights dimmed momentarily. An Enlix had breached their defenses. The screen flashed with an alert: unauthorized entry detected in Engineering Bay. Caleb and Lin exchanged a look. The Council had sent an Enlix, a bold move. "Commander, initiate lockdown on all key systems, route command controls here, and alert the security teams." Down in the shadowy corridors of the Engineering Bay, Verrek moved like a wraith, barely a blur on the surveillance cameras. His slender frame slipped through the shadows as he hacked into one of the secondary control consoles, inputting codes with frightening speed. He intended to overload the ship's fusion core, crippling the Resolute from within. But Verrek had underestimated one thing: humans' ingenuity with outdated technology. While the Council relied on intricate, predictable systems, Earth had adapted its technology from a range of sources, making it harder to breach. Even as he began bypassing the final firewall, Verrek felt the first traces of a counterattack, a data trail of commands pushing back against him. His lips curled back in a hiss. "Clever," he muttered to himself, fingers moving even faster. But as he fought the system, a human soldier in heavy armor appeared behind him. Lieutenant Carson, a combat engineer, pointed a plasma rifle at Verrek's back, her voice sharp and unyielding. "Step away from that console." Verrek turned slowly, a mocking smile on his lips. "Human soldiers, bold, but naive. Do you really think you can stop me?" Carson's smile was just as fierce. "We stopped your entire fleet before, so yes, I think I can handle you." Before he could react, she fired a stun pulse directly into his chest. Verrek dropped, twitching as the energy immobilized him. Carson signaled up to the bridge. "Intruder apprehended, Admiral." As the UNS Resolute moved forward, Earth's forces continued their coordinated strikes, strategically dismantling Council strongholds one by one. Each successful assault added to the Council's unease, but still they resisted, determined to crush what they saw as humanity's rebellion. In a final act of desperation, the Council sent a message to Earth's highest officials, demanding an immediate ceasefire negotiation. Caleb knew this could be a trap, but he also recognized an opportunity to push the Council to its breaking point, perhaps even secure lasting autonomy for humanity and its allies. As they prepared for the negotiation, one question loomed large: would the Council finally respect humanity's strength? Or would this confrontation ignite an all-out war that would change the galaxy forever? This was humanity's stand, and, whether they would emerge victorious or fall, they were determined to leave an undeniable mark on the galaxy. The negotiation table. The Council's urgent call for peace talks reached Earth's command with caution. For the Galactic Council, an organization that spanned millennia and ruled countless systems, to request a negotiation with a young species was unheard of. This was no ordinary invitation, it was a calculated risk for the Council, one that, if mishandled, could splinter its authority among its allied species. On board the UNS Resolute, Admiral Caleb and his commanders prepared for what was likely to be a dangerous meeting. He knew the Council was rarely sincere, and they would likely try to use diplomacy as a cover to weaken Earth's resolve. But humanity's leadership saw an opportunity here, one that could give them a foothold among the stars. In a distant, neutral sector near the rim, a massive station known as Helshen's Accord floated in the depths of space, its vast structure humming with the combined energies of hundreds of species. This station was historically used only for rare, intergalactic peace talks and was considered hallowed ground. Its luminous halls, with bioluminescent walls and whispering echo chambers, bore witness to history's greatest alliances and betrayals. Admiral Caleb arrived at the negotiation table, flanked by Commander Lin and an unusual ally, Verrek Zar, a Korthan engineer from a race of expert shipbuilders who had quietly pledged their support to Earth. The Corthans had long suffered under Council-imposed trade restrictions and saw Earth's defiance as a spark that could lead to their own liberation. On the opposite side of the table sat Chancellor Ereditharn, her golden scales glinting under the soft, artificial light. She was joined by High General Arxis, the Triver war strategist, and 2 other high-ranking counselors. Tension hung thick in the air. Chancellor Etharn's voice was smooth, yet laced with a subtle menace. Admiral Caleb, we are prepared to discuss terms. This conflict is unnecessary and harmful to all. Let us bring it to a swift conclusion. Caleb met her gaze, unflinching. A conflict that you initiated by targeting our colonies without cause. Earth won't settle for anything less than a secure place among the stars without Council interference. The Chancellor's expression remained carefully neutral, but her eyes held a spark of disdain. Humanity was reckless, Admiral. Expansion without adherence to Council protocols brings risk to all galactic life. We had to intervene. Caleb leaned forward, his voice low and steady. You didn't intervene, you attacked. And now that we've pushed back, you're suddenly open to peace. Let's be clear, Earth demands recognition as an independent system, with rights equal to any Council member. Arxis, seated beside Etharn, scoffed. Independence? He crossed his arms. Humanity has been in the stars for barely a century, and already you think you deserve equal status? You've yet to prove your worth. It was Varix Zar, the Corthan, who responded. His voice was calm but firm. The Council has made this same mistake before with my people, and countless others. Earth's actions speak for themselves. They are here because they earned it. Etharn glanced at Varix, her eyes narrowing. The Councilors had been watching Earth and its allies closely, and each alliance with a species like the Corthans only strengthened humanity's position. Reluctantly, she turned back to Caleb. If we were to recognize Earth's independence, there would be conditions, she said, her voice steady but strained. Earth must agree to limit its military presence and remain within the bounds of its own system. Caleb's jaw tightened. And if we refuse? Arxis's lips curled into a smirk. Then we remind you, Admiral, that Earth is still one planet. The Council is infinite. Caleb locked eyes with the Triver General. Unyielding. One planet, maybe, but one with a resolve that Council couldn't break. If you threaten Earth, you'll lose more than you bargained for. We're not alone anymore. The Chancellor sat back, silence descending upon the room as she processed Caleb's words. This was no mere show of bravado. Humanity's alliances were real, and Earth was prepared to fight for its future. After a long pause, she spoke, her tone measured. We will consider your terms, but understand this, Admiral, should war continue, there will be no mercy. Part 5, The Shadow of Betrayal. As the humans departed from the negotiation hall, Varix Zar pulled Caleb aside, his expression troubled. Admiral, there is something you should know. There are rumors among the Council species, whispers that an internal faction is opposed to any peace with Earth. Caleb nodded, unsurprised. I expected as much, but do you think they'd risk an all-out betrayal? Varix hesitated. These rumors speak of an ancient Council protocol, a secret project designed to neutralize emerging threats. Caleb's face darkened. The idea of a secret weapon didn't surprise him, but he couldn't dismiss the possibility. We need to prepare. Then, if they have something planned, we'll meet it head-on. Back aboard the UNS Resolute, Caleb convened his senior officers and allies, outlining the possibility of a betrayal. Security was heightened, and their forces were reinforced with additional Corthan and Trucian allies. The final confrontation. 3 cycles later, Caleb received an urgent transmission from Varix. The Council had deployed a classified fleet, its location hidden from public records and armed with weaponry banned under intergalactic treaties. Known as Project Genesis, it was a last-resort weapon capable of generating a gravity well, essentially trapping any targeted star system in a perpetual time freeze. The Resolute's crew watched in silence as the live feed from Varix showed the Council's fleet descending toward Earth's sector. Caleb turned to his officers, his expression grim. We cannot let them deploy this weapon. If they activate it, it will trap Earth in an endless stasis. Commander Lin looked at him, eyes filled with fierce determination. Then we intercept. Full fleet mobilization. With Varix and the Allied forces by their side, humanity's fleet surged into position, meeting the Council's forbidden weapon head-on. The battle that ensued was unlike any in the galaxy's history, a relentless clash of strategy and raw willpower. as humans and their allies fought desperately to keep the Council from initiating the Genesis device. In the chaos, Caleb led a daring boarding mission, infiltrating the Council's flagship where the Genesis device was housed. Side by side with Varix and his soldiers, they navigated the ship's winding halls, facing elite Council guards and deadly traps. At the core of the vessel, they found the Genesis control panel, a towering device pulsing with energy. As alarms blared, Caleb and Varix worked quickly, dismantling the controls while Council reinforcements swarmed the chamber. At the final moment, as the countdown neared 0, Caleb slammed his fist onto the emergency override, disabling the Genesis weapon. With the Council fleet in disarray and their forbidden weapon neutralized, the tides shifted. The Council's forces fell back, retreating from Earth's sector as Allied ships pursued, securing Earth's independence once and for all. Epilogue: A New Dawn. In the aftermath of the battle, the Council was forced to recognize Earth's autonomy. Humanity and its allies had proven their strength and resilience, shattering the Council's illusion of dominance. Over time, Earth became a respected, if still cautious, member of the galactic community. Admiral Caleb stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolute, looking out over a free Earth. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity had finally claimed its place among the stars, not as subjects, but as equals.